With a population of only 334,000 people, Iceland has entered the 2018 World Cup as the smallest nation ever to qualify by population size. That is simply incredible. One of only two debutantes this year, along with Panama, Iceland look to continue their storied run from Euro 2016, where they reached the quarterfinals. And when you look at Iceland's story, how they got here, you look at where they were just a decade ago, among the worst minnows on the European continent. It is one of the greatest stories of the modern era of world football. We're talking Iceland being in the same league as a Liechtenstein, a Moldova, a Faroe Islands from back then, and to get where they are now, what they have done with investment in the country, with a very limited talent pool to choose from, and being so isolated from the rest of Europe, is really remarkable. And when they got to their first ever major international tournament 2 summers ago, they went through to the last 8. So looking at Iceland heading into this tournament, their friendlies, ever since securing qualification, they played against the Czech Republic, where they lost 2-1, a 1-1 draw with Qatar, 2 victories over Indonesia, 3 consecutive losses to Mexico, Peru, and Norway, and a 2-2 draw versus Ghana. Not really that impressive. Their only victory since securing a spot in the World Cup was the 2 wins over Indonesia. But you know what? Their friendly record right after qualifying for Euro 2016 and right before the 2016 European Championship started was also not very impressive. And look what they did once they got to the tournament. So Iceland is sort of a testament to how friendlies should be weighed with a heavy grain of salt. And we should pay some respect to a team, a country that finished as only one of 9 group winners in European qualifying. They qualified directly in a group containing Croatia, Turkey, Ukraine, Kosovo, and Finland, and Group I of European qualifying was considered the tightest for a top 2 position between those 4 teams: Iceland, Croatia, Turkey, and Ukraine. And Iceland secured qualification on the final match day with a 2-0 victory at home against Kosovo, finally getting revenge on Croatia, whom they play, coincidentally, in this World Cup group. Iceland open up the World Cup in Group D against Giants Argentina, Messi plus 10 homeless guys, Clowns FC, they who must not be named, Aquafina. So it's very much a David versus Goliath type of story. Then they play Nigeria, 2 very different contrasting styles, extreme Northern European team, a Viking team, against a West African team. And they close out against Croatia, same team that I said they have a bit of history with. It should be harder to progress from this group than it was from the Euro 2016 group, but sky is the limit for Iceland after what they did in France 2 summers ago. Remember the opening match for Euro 2016 for Iceland? They drew 1-1 with Portugal, the eventual European champions. They opened the first World Cup against Lionel Messi. And given the form this current Argentina team is in, who's to say Iceland can't do it again? Who's to say they can't get a shock result and maybe get through into the latter rounds? Maybe this story will continue. They are going to be a team that will most likely seek to put numbers behind the ball, sit back, absorb pressure against better opposition in their group. But this is also a team that can score goals. They scored more goals in their qualification group than Croatia did. So they're not going to be the Panama of Europe. They already have tournament fortitude and pedigree and credentials based on Euro 2016. And wherever they go, wherever the fans go, they're going to bring delight with them. Who can forget the Viking clap that really took the whole world by storm? You know, how many different fan bases have taken that and appropriated it for their own clubs or national teams that they support? So Iceland's impact is memorable, and I think they're going to do something memorable in this tournament as well. Let's look at the squad. Goalkeepers Hannes Thor Halderson, Runar Alex Runnarsson, Fredrik Schramm. Defenders Birkir Mar Severson, Ragnar Sigurdsson, Kari Arnason, Ari Freyr Skulason, Sverri Igni Ignason, Horder Björgvin Magnusson, Samuel Kari Fjordason, Homar Oren Jerusson, midfielders Aaron Einar Gunnarsson, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Emil Halfredsson, Birkir Bjarnason, Johan Berg Gudmansson, Olafur Ingiskulason, Arnar Ingvid Trauthassen, Rurik Gislason, and forwards Alfred Finnbogason, John Dowdy Budvarsson, Bjorn Bergman Sigvarsson, and Albert Gudmansson. And for the first time, really, for most of Icelandic football's history, they have players that are not mostly domestically based. I mean, some of these guys do play at home, but you also have players like Birkir Bjarnason and Gylfi Sigurdsson. They play in the Premier League for Aston Villa and Everton. Albert Gudmansson plays for PSV Eindhoven. I believe captain Aaron Gunnarsson plays for Cardiff City. Aaron Gunnarsson is also famous for being the player on the team that has the distinctive, very Nordic, Scandinavian-style long beard. Usually captures the eyes of many, especially many neutrals. So these guys can ball. And the core of that Euro 2016 group is still there, with Skulason, with Birkir Bjarnason, with Halfredsson and Gudmansson, with Finnbogason, etc. One major weakness, though, for Iceland is their bench is very thin. You know, you look at their reserves, the reserve squad is not very highly esteemed as the starting 11 we can expect. And you'd have to wonder that when they come up against better teams, and if they find themselves susceptible to fouling more, and players have to get subbed off due to yellow card accumulations or red cards, they might wear their bench very dry because they don't have very many options on the sidelines. That is a major weakness of a team that certainly does not have one of the most in-depth squads of the tournament, but what they do have is a core of hardworking players, none of whom are by any means world-class, but who are still better than the sum of their parts. And it's hard to not love Iceland, you know? So good luck to the Strákar Okkar, which is the nickname of the Icelandic national team, which means our boys. So that's very endearing. I have a feeling their run is not necessarily over just yet. Good luck, Iceland.